So I am going to do a video. Normally, I talk about matters of politics and sociology and that kind of thing, and I want to talk about something else that's been on my mind because it needs to be said, and it needs to be said a lot more, and that is that tribute acts are killing rock music. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of factors that are going into it, and I'm a professional musician, and so this is something that I'm keenly aware of. Now I play in every style, and I'm trained to play in every style, so I am happy to take work in whatever genre will give it to me. But my two great passions are rock music, specifically metal, and then also jazz. I'm a huge jazz fan, and so I am, equally influenced by Steve Vai and Pat Metheny. Anyway, so as I bring all of this up, um, I'm showing you the messy side of my apartment this time. I know you're aghast to think that I thought the other side was the clean side, but it's a matter of degrees. Anyway, as I think about this, uh, I say it because it's funny. I was talking to a woman today who told me that she played. It was like Aerosmith or something for her 11-year-old son. He said, "Why is this music so guitar heavy?" And she realized it's like you don't have this 11-year-old son. He didn't have rock and roll as like the foundational template of his appreciation for music. It's all programmed electronic shit and everything like that. Don't get me wrong, there's good programmed electronic shit out there. But the thing is, rock and roll, I think rock and roll is a deeply, deeply important genre to maintain. And I think if we lose rock, we lose a part of our soul. Because think about what's popular now. Every goddamn song now that's popular has that same trap beat behind that, and it's a beat that has no soul. It is just flat and dry, and it's like, let's take disco and do it in halftime. That's all it is. Anyway, so I worry about what's going on with rock music, and you look at what's happened. I went to music school. I went to Berkeley in the early 2000s, and so this was when Napster and LimeWire and all the file sharing stuff was very much in its infancy, and the attitude was. I have a cat that thinks she's in distress, but she's not. Anyway, if you hear that in the background. But anyway, you're not. Uh, oh, here she comes. Anyway, hey Samantha. Anyway, uh, the but anyway, so it was in the early 2000s, and file sharing and all of that. It was not regarded the way it is now. It was regarded as this anomaly, this unfortunate development that the music industry would find a way to deal with. It's like, we'll find a file encryption that can't be copied, or we'll do something. We'll figure something out to beat this. And over time, it became very clear that it could not be beaten. So the industry thought, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And that put us on the track to Spotify and Apple iTunes and Amazon Music and all the streaming services that we have now. But the thing that we were all told, we professional musicians and aspiring professional musicians, the thing that we were all told over and over again was, uh, don't worry, because you, the artist, don't need to worry. It's only the big fat cats at the record label that are going to get screwed by this, because you, the artists, are still going to make money off of your live show, and that's where the music has always been anyway, so don't worry. Okay, so time goes by, and what has happened? There has been, I'm going to use, forgive me for using this example because I know I've brought it up in a lot of videos in the past, and it's but it really is an apropos example, and I'm not. I've been accused of being a huge Ayn Rand maniac in the past, and I still appreciate her stuff, but I'm at a different point in my life now. So I'm just bringing this up as an example. Anyway, in the book Atlas Shrugged, the main character, Dagny Taggart, at the beginning of the book, she is realizing that all of the people around her are disappearing. Like all these composers, artists, business people, even just mathematicians and scientists, and all these people that she looks up to and appreciates, they're all disappearing from society. Like they're just vanishing left and right. And it's leaving her in this, she doesn't know why, and it's leaving her in this empty world that has no culture and no passion and no life and no artistry and no joy and no sense of life, as Ayn Rand would put it. And that is very apropos to what it feels like is happening in the local, not just the local, but the national, worldwide music industry. And I swear, I was talking to a guy that I didn't know a while ago, and he wanted to play me some music that he loved. And he says, I love this music. It sounds like nothing else that's. He said those words. It sounds like nothing else that's on the radio. He plays it. I mean, just over and I think the only thing that was different was the person that was singing / rapping had kind of an Irish accent. And so anyway, what has happened? Why it feels like that? It feels like the passion and the life and the joy is just disappearing from live music and from the live music scene. And there's a lot of factors that contribute to it. You know, obviously the streaming movies and TVs where movies and television, where you've got on-demand programming, thousands of shows and movies instantly on demand, combined with video games, combined with all this other stuff that's making us more sedentary, so people are less likely to go out because of that. People are less likely to go out. Now, on top of that, you don't have any new. You have a lot of new rock music on the local level, but you don't have anything that's breaking through in a very exciting way. And part of that is because you don't have any larger industry trends that are shaping taste overall. Now, you know, it's kind of like I hated being in high school during the nu metal era and everything, but honestly, that was even preferable to what we have now, especially because now in retrospect I like a lot of those bands more now than I did back then. Like now I love Coal Chamber, and I love Coal Chamber, and I love even have an appreciation for Limp Bizkit, and I love Korn a lot more than I did in high school and all that. So anyway, and I liked them okay in high school, but anyway, things they're still not even that much of a vibrant scene. Even the nu metal scene seems vibrant and vital back then compared to what's going on in rock music now. The idea that a band like Greta Van Fleet becomes successful, decent band, I'm not going to knock them. I like their songs, I like a lot of their stuff, but it's like everybody else says, just Led Zeppelin again. And if there weren't already a tribute band called Led Zepp again, I would say they should just call themselves that. And I think about it, it's like, what was the last new rock band that I really got into? The first one that comes to mind is Wolfmother. Well, Ghost. Ghost came out a little more recently, and I like Ghost, and they're doing well. But the thing is, rock music is not getting that crossover into the mainstream that it needs now. There's a lot. I can find you a zillion great bands playing bars right now. The Atlanta scene has got a great metal scene, for example. There's a lot of good metal bands out there. Order of the Owl comes to mind. Zoroaster, before they broke up, comes to mind. Obviously, everybody knows about Mastodon. Halcyon Way is a great example. Really good band. But then Royal Thunder came out recently. They're really good. So there's a lot of great stuff coming out of the Atlanta scene, and it's just not quite kicking over. I use the Atlanta scene as an example. So what's happened? Well, think about it this way. I've been playing in bands for close to 20 years now. And my most recent band is a group called Axis of Empires. Now, Axis of Empires, you can go look us up. Our album came out. I'm not being arrogant to say that it's top notch. We had, all of everybody that played on the album was amazing. It was produced by Corey Lowry from Seether, who's an amazing guy, and he did, he really worked on the tunes with us and everything. And we got top notch production, we got top notch performances, top notch songwriting, and obviously it's not perfect, and nothing is. And I don't mean to sound arrogant, but the point I'm making is that it's a very high end thing, and it's not a niche sound either. I mean, it's power metal. You're going to really like it if you're into Stradivarius, Halloween, Nightwish, etc. 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 Gamma Ray, all of those. The European power metal bands. That's the main thing. But we don't have any trouble hooking the Bon Jovi, Def Leppard demographic either. So you listen to our songs. There's a lot of crossover appeal, mainstream appeal. Contrast that with the band. 10 years ago I was playing in a band called Incarcerate 9. We were pretty much, I mean, you could call us like industrial gothic black metal, sort of. I mean, it was, if you liked bands like My Dying Bride and Celtic Frost and Emperor and Burzum and all of that, the extreme metal stuff, that's what it was. It was very much an acquired taste, very much a niche market. We totally knew that. We were totally fine with that. But by comparison, it's so weird because you go to you look at the dates that we were playing. That band, I swear, we were playing like 30 shows a year. It was insane. I mean, and then we were just having shows every other weekend. Versus now, where I've got a band that is much more polished, much more. No disrespect to my brethren in Incarcerate 9, but understandably more polished, more done with a lot more marketing in mind, a lot more mainstream appeal in mind, and it is hard as hell to find gigs. We play out, and when we play out, we bring a crowd, and we play out, we bring a crowd. We always get a very warm reception. We always make money for the bar, and so there's no question there. We should be having an even easier time than Incarcerate 9 did. Incarcerate 9, it took us 3 years to build up a steady fan base. Then we broke up, but it took us 3 years to build up a steady fan base. This, fan base was there and everything, and it's hard as hell to get gigs. And as I look at it, I don't want to be, I'm using myself as an example. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to create controversy on the local level. I want to make a point. I'm trying to make a point here, and something that I think really needs to be thought about and needs to be considered. And the thing is, why are the gigs drying up? Why are the gigs harder to find? And by the way, I'm not alone in this. By the way, my other colleagues in the local music scene are having the same trouble that I am. It's tough getting gigs. It's lean, man. Just getting on stage at a bar is getting impossible. And so, 10 years ago, the thing was there was a process to this. Even if you weren't a very good band, there was a process to what was going on. You started out, you played the all-ages venues, which means no alcohol, is all that means. So you played the all-ages venues. You started out at Swayze's, and you went to the other stuff that was at the level of Swayze's. And then at that point, you networked with other bands. And the other bands started saying, well, come get on this bill with us we're doing over here. Maybe you played a barbecue at somebody's house or something, but you started playing on the circuit with these local bands. And, you would play with these groups, and then you would say, well, then you had enough local clout that you could go to a bar like Lenny's and say, we'd like to get on, at Lenny's or at the Five Spot or something like that. And so you started to step up a little bit. And after a while, once you were established enough in the local scene and you showed that you could, draw a crowd and that kind of thing, you'd start playing the Masquerade, which is like our at Atlanta. In Atlanta, the Masquerade. There's a few other venues, just you'd say kind of just below it, like Smith's Old Bar is another one that's just below the Masquerade in terms of like touring bands. They're a little bit more bar than they are club, if that makes sense. And then the Masquerade is like our main concert venue. It's got three different stages, and they have three different shows going every night, and it's a huge thing. Anyway, but you would play the Masquerade, and you would play, and you would start opening for major acts at the Masquerade, and that was your threshold. That was your make or break. That was where the guys that had contacts with record labels, they were paying attention right there. And the and so that was your point. And by the time Incarcerary 9 broke up, we were starting to make inroads into other states, playing out of state, but just on the local scene, we were playing constantly. And we got to we were getting to that point where it was like there was starting to be some tentative label interest and that kind of thing. And I look back now, and that process is not there anymore. Swayze's is closed, Lenny's is closed, a whole lot of venues are closed. It's gotten to where it's funny. It's like I don't want to name names in the local community, but there are gigs that were used to be hard to get that are easy to get, and there are gigs that used to be hard to get that have become impossible to get. It's like it's gone in two directions, and neither one of them is great. But mainly, it has gone from being like, oh, you played, it's like you played this venue, you played this venue. Wow, you've really accomplished something. But you've still got a long ways to go, and then you played this venue and this venue and this venue. You go up the ladder. Now, if you play that first venue, you've really accomplished something. It is insane trying to get booked anymore for any genre of rock music. It has gotten insane. So, what do I lay this at the feet of? I lay it at the feet of the tribute acts. Because here's the thing. The question, ultimately, you have to stop and look at it from a cost-benefit analysis. There are still people with money. There are still record execs with money that are putting money behind new artists. And they are putting the money behind the artists that make... And that's the thing. There has always been this unsteady, kind of quiet war between hip-hop and rock music. And the big thing that hip-hop has is that it is very cheap to produce. And part of the problem, part of the reason I keep making fun of that beat, is it's so easy to produce that it's saturating the market. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's doing exactly the same song over and over again, and there's not the innovation that there was, when it was, go back to Public Enemy, go back to NWA, go back to Grandmaster Flash, go back to Run DMC. There's, LL Cool J, who Radio is probably my favorite hip-hop rap album of all time. There is no innovation, there's no sense of passion or vitality anymore. That scene is just as dead as rock. But what's happened? But why is it persisting? Because it costs so little money to make. And that is why Travis Scott's music, Travis Scott, who, I'm sorry, if you took his backing track away, he would not sound like he was rapping. If you heard that voice by itself, you would say, who is this man and why has he gotten away from his caregiver? But that is what's popular now because the entry level is so low. And you wouldn't think that it could get the entry level could get easier than the Kingsmen doing Louie Louie. But even that, you've got to have so much more equipment. You've got to have so much more artist prep for that. I mean, there is so much more that goes into just the most basic three-chord rock song, trying to get that on stage. Versus, here's my track, here's me rapping, or here's my laptop, plug me into the soundboard, and I'm going to DJ the whole night. because the minimum threshold for the minimum bet is so low and the potential payout is so high, they have no risk. They have no reason to clubs and record execs have no reason to take a risk on something as complicated as rock music. And I mean, you think about it. Think about it like a um, like a blackjack table, okay, or better yet, a slot machine. Imagine there's a slot machine. There's two slot machines that have the same $1 million payout, except and they have the same $1 million payout, except this one over here pays out 10 times more often than this one over here, and this one over here costs a quarter or 50 cents or whatever, and this one over here costs $50 per play. You're gonna put more into this one over here, obviously. So from a business standpoint, it makes total sense. From an artistic standpoint, it means that we have bad, dull, dead music that is just polluting the airwaves with passionless crap, and, in my opinion, signaling the downfall of civilization, because being an artist, that's where my heart is, and that's what I'm focused on first. So if that starts to go, that's like scientists, for me, that's like scientists worrying about the bees dying off. And so that's, uh, you know, that is very troubling. So why do I lay this at the feet of tribute bands? Because tribute bands are feeding into the very process that turns a vital genre into something of yesteryear. Now, here's the thing: I have a metal band. I also just started a jazz group because my educational background is in jazz. So I just started a jazz group, and I'm really loving that. And when you play jazz, it's a very different scene, because it's like, instead of presenting your music, and I am writing music for that project, but we're going to go in there, we're going to book gigs, and I know what we're going to play. We're going to play Autumn Leaves, and we're going to play Autumn Leaves and So What, and probably Round Midnight and My Funny Valentine and Stella by Starlight, and it's just going to keep just the songs. The people that love jazz know these 40 songs that they want to hear you play. And jazz, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the improvisational aspect is also what people are there to hear. So they're thinking, just take Stella by Starlight, take My Funny Valentine, use that as a template and go off in this other direction, make it your own. So there's a little bit more of that. But at the end of the day, the jazz scene, they've got 40 songs they want to hear, and that's it. Now, I want to make something very clear. Now, as I bring this into the tribute act thing, I draw a very specific distinction between tribute acts and cover bands. There are good cover bands. I don't think cover bands are a problem, the same kind of problem as a tribute act. Like, I'll give you an example. I have some friends that play in a group called Meddlesome here in town. Meddlesome is great. And what Meddlesome does is it's live band karaoke. And so the backing band is professional musicians that they know like 100 songs, and you sign up, and you pay your $20 or whatever it is, and you sign up and you say, like, I want to sing "Living on a Prayer," or I want to sing "Pour Some Sugar on Me," and you get up there and they play it, and you, the singer, get up and sing it. So it's actually really cool, because it's taking karaoke night and it's making it a live concept. That kind of thing I love. That's not the same. The problem is the tribute acts. And a tribute band, the difference between a cover band, a cover band just plays, famous songs. Okay. A tribute act is meant to give you the experience of seeing the band that they are paying tribute to. Originally, this was not a problem. There's the Australian Pink Floyd, for example, comes out. And the Australian Pink Floyd comes out, and they give you the Pink Floyd experience. And they've played, they've come through and played the Fox Theater. They play huge shows. Fair enough. Pink Floyd's not around anymore. Then, ABBA has an officially licensed tribute band. And, I love ABBA, but I would rather see the original ABBA rather than just, Bjorn and all those guys just signed off and said, okay, they're carrying on where we've left off, and go see them instead, and they're good enough. So they kind of officially licensed as this tribute band. And what happens is now the tribute acts have a guaranteed draw. And so those rock venues that don't do rap, and there are very few venues that don't also feature rap. That's the thing. If they feature rap, they're dominated by rap. But the ones that are strictly rock music venues, to keep their heads above water, they have to book these tribute acts, and it's one tribute act after another. There was a venue I saw recently. I saw it advertised on Facebook and whatnot. Molly Hatchet was playing there, and I did a double take because I realized it was the actual Molly Hatchet. I assumed it was a tribute band, and so what happens there is you are giving people the base level rock and roll experience that they want to have, but you are not you are giving them the experience that they want to have, like a small dose, a very minute, let's say, methadone maintenance level dose of the hard stuff that they really wanted to get. So you're giving them this weak dose of the experience of Van Halen or Aerosmith or all of these bands. And what happens, or Nirvana, or that, and that's tough, man. You talk about feeling old. It's when the Nirvana tribute acts are coming out and the grunge tribute acts. But anyway, because I was essentially a '90s kid, and it's gotten to this point where the rosters of so many clubs are just saturated with tribute acts. And as a result, you are pushing rock music into. I understand the financial incentive. You've got to make money. You've got to have something that will guarantee an audience. And rock music is much more costly to put on and more costly to get out there. So I understand the financial impetus. But what's happening is the tribute acts can instantly play at that upper level of the local scene. If you have a good tribute act, you can instantly get on stage at these upper level clubs that were like the last threshold before you went big. So they dominate the charts and the calendars at these local clubs. And so what you've had is the local stuff, like I mentioned, Swayze's and Lenny's. Those clubs drop off, they die out, and then these clubs are choking the overhead up here, and the ceiling for local bands has gotten so incredibly low that it's a small miracle getting booked nowadays, because it's so many bands are just compacting at this bottom level, and it's all just that everybody is just creating a bubble right here. And when we all should be on this process of going up and up and up and up and up. And the thing is that's actually, if the up and up and up level thing is actually okay, I say this from experience, having played in bands for 20 years, almost 20 years. A lot of bands break up because they're about to get famous. Like they're about to break big. And I've been in this situation, before. Bands break up because they become so popular that the record labels are interested in that kind of thing, and that's when they go, oh shit, man, my girlfriend's pregnant, and I just got made, branch manager at my day job or something. I can't leave all this behind and go on tour full time, and that's where they break up. So it's actually, it actually does not bubble at that point, because there's a turnover, a very high turnover ratio at that point. And believe me, if you're in a band and you ever get to the point where you're about to get famous, you will be surprised how hard it is to quit your day job, to let go of the certainty of your existence and go chase that next level, move on to that next level of the dream. So that actually, back then, that was not a problem. These bands get so big they can't stand it anymore. A friend of mine had several kids, and he said, I got tired of, I would go out on the road and, for like, I would see my kids like 3 times a year, so people's priorities change and that kind of thing, and that happens. That model was great because nobody was bubbling, and the scene, there was no bubble at any point, and the scene was vibrant. It was beautiful. It was passionate. And there's so many good bands. And I thought it was tough then, man. I thought the competition was hard then, man. It's nothing compared to what it is now. And it's that thing of like, if I have to identify one thing that's different from now versus 10 years ago, because 10 years ago, we had Spotify. 10 years ago, we had streaming services. It was even worse because 10 years ago, more people were still relying on BitTorrent sites and pirating sites and everything, so there wasn't even that much money coming into the industry. But 10 years ago, it was a whole different thing. People were still passionate. People were still hopeful. People were still vibrant and excited about their music. It's dismal now, man. And it's because there is a tribute act for every band that has ever been played on the radio. I'm not kidding, I saw an advertisement for a Warrant tribute band. Warrant had, what, 2 hit singles? They had Heaven and Cherry Pie, and that was it as far as I can recall. That does not warrant a tribute band. I understand doing a tribute to Bon Jovi, Van Halen, Kiss, Def Leppard. This makes sense, but now it's everything. Every band that has ever been popular now has spawned a series of tribute bands. And what that's going to do is it's going to push people to where it's like there's 40 songs that get played on the radio, there's 40 songs we want to hear live, and that's going to be it for rock music, just like jazz. And I would be okay with that, almost, if what was replacing it was something as good or better. You know, ragtime. There's a time when ragtime music, go listen to Scott Joplin, go listen to songs like Alexander's Ragtime Band. Alexander's Ragtime Band was a smoke on the water of its day. Ragtime used to be the most popular genre, the most popular music genre in the world. There was a time when that was the case. Then swing jazz came along, took that over. Then swing jazz and blues and country, these genres came along. And then hard bop came along, and then smooth, soft bop, cool jazz came along, and then fusion came along, and then rock and roll came along, and then psychedelic rock, like the Doors, Pink Floyd, all of that came along, and then heavy metal came along, then rap came along, and even rap was great at first, and all of this stuff, and we kept having, and heavy metal came along, and then you had alternative rock came along, and all of these genres kept building on one another, and it kept getting more and more exciting and more vibrant. And now, what's going to replace rock? I see people listening to this music, to that beat. They don't move. They don't respond to it. It's literally just... And no, there's no question why that is. It's one step away from not hearing music at all. It is a completely empty, dead, soulless sound. And we're going to give up rock music for that. And I strongly think if we could if the tribute bands were not choking it off at the top, we could get the cycle happening again. The economy, the music economy is not that different from what it was 10 years ago. In fact, I think it's probably a little better. So if we can get, if something, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take. It may take clubs coming along and saying, we will not book tribute acts. Like new clubs opening and saying, we're here, like our marketing thing is live, new music, vital, exciting music. Like there's a club here in Atlanta called the Mammal Gallery that I don't think they've ever said that, but they make it a point to book live, original, new music. We need more of that. I was at Mammal Gallery not too long ago for the record release. Well, not record release, but it was a major gig by a friend of mine. And, and it was it felt like this alien experience. It's like people excited about new music. It's not just a bunch of 40-year-old moms that are, and their hubbies that are there to see a Def Leppard tribute. It was almost like walking into. It's like you go to a high school reunion and they've redone the whole building to look like it did in when you were there as a student. It was like that. It was like a blast from the past. I was nostalgic for the experience of new music. That's what we've got to have, man. Because I think if we lose rock music, we're going to lose happiness. So, just my opinion.